Welcome to the Hooch, where the only place more messed up than your hosts is the barracks on a Friday or the VA. So get ready to stand by for your weekly dose of toilet humor and shenanigans from your fellow veterans, Coy Mack and Michael Grizzled Grunt Harris.
Is it positive or negative what is going on with Kanye West? The fact that he's come out as, I wouldn't even say, I don't know if he's 100% pro-Trump, but the fact that he's thinking outside of the box and telling people you don't have to vote this way because you're black or Hispanic, that you can vote any way you want, or you don't have to be a part of a certain party because of your skin color. So what do you think about this? Is this positive for America, or is this negative, or is it just complete and total hyped up BS to help sell some new albums?
Whether it's, damn it, I totally screwed that up. My mic wasn't on.
Unedited.
Yeah. So my mic was on. I'm retarded.
So does that mean we have to start the whole thing all over again?
Nope.
No, we're not. It's unedited. That was my fault. So that's always a fun thing with that. So anyway, back to my intro, I guess. You got Coy Mack, Michael Harris, Joe Biggs, Marcus Ruiz, and myself. I'm retarded, don't know technology, and I can't work my own switcher. So there we go. Anyway, back to Joe's question. I don't know if that's what he's doing here. I mean, hopefully, I think he's doing this because he actually wants to be free of thought. But I just don't know. Like, Kanye's too much of a wild card to kind of nail down like that. I don't know. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
I fully support it because coming from a place where everyone is a Democrat and has voted Democrat for a long, long time, and especially working when I was part of a union telling me that I need to be a Democrat, I fully support that he says you don't have to go doing with what everyone says. I do my own thing.
Exactly. You know, and coming from the guy that shares the same skin complexion as Kanye, I go through this all the time. You know, my family hates the way I think politically. They hate the way I, go against the grain politically. They hate the way that I don't follow the Democratic Party politically. And I get it. I get called all types of names. So, I don't think Kanye is like a Trump supporter. I really don't think he's a conservative. But I do think what Kanye is saying is think outside the box. You don't have to think this way if you're a person of color. You don't have to fall in line or toe the line with a democratic social justice plantation, aspect of life. You can think your own way. And here's the way I think. I totally agree with the way he's thinking. I just don't, politically, I don't think he is, on the conservative side of things.
Yeah, that's a good, interesting question to kind of bring up with Marcus. Is like, I don't know what your particular political leanings are. Coming from California, it could be very mixed. I don't know. So go ahead and ask you that. What are you specifically in terms of political party or affiliation?
Well, the Calexit movement tries not to tie itself to either political party. What we're saying is that the federal government's dysfunctional. If you want to blame it on the Republicans, fine. You want to blame it on the Democrats, we don't care. We don't want to be part of it. So we kind of make a real strong effort. Yes, California's progressive. Yes, there's a lot of liberals. Yes, there's a lot of liberals in Calexit, but the Calexit movement has made sure to say, hey, if you're conservative and you believe in lowering taxes and getting rid of regulation and improving infrastructure to make room for better businesses, you're welcome, as long as you support California values, which basically means acceptance of diversity. I know that's not the answer you were looking for. That's the one I'm looking for. Sorry.
That's fine. So with the whole Kanye thing, I mean, do you have any personal opinions on that, not connected to Calexit, or that you can say?
I mean, generally, I believe it's good that people can say, I get to think for myself. I don't have to be X because I'm part of this group. However, because he's speaking about Trump, no, totally against it. Sorry, I know that seems stereotypical. I guess I'm going to fall in on that particular question.
Hey, that's fine.
I mean, it's funny. It's like I've always stated this on the show. I'm not exactly the most avid Trump supporter, but I'm definitely very conservative. But we have some disagreements on that, and that's fine. Totally fine with disagreements. So, Joe, do you have any more to say on Kanye?
Yeah, I just think that we have a great awakening. I think that we have people that are mentally enslaved, that believe that they have to think certain ways because of areas they've grown up, or because of their skin color, or because of their heritage or their family or something like that. My wife is Caribbean, you know, and when she met me, she's like, wow, she's like, you think so differently about things like this. You know, for instance, the other night I go out, my black buddy, he wears a Trump, love Trump's lies. And he always wears it because he thinks that it's going to get me upset. But I tell him, I give him a big hug. I go, Steve, that's awesome. And the fact that you and I are sitting here, we should be able to have a difference in opinion. And that's the free thinking, is going, okay, I think this way. You think that way. But why can't we just be human beings and go out and have a beer and shake hands? Why does there have to be so much animosity? Why does there have to be so much hate? Why does there have to be so much? Why is it that if you think differently from other people, and the way you think doesn't hurt anybody technically, then why should that be censored, stopped, and be considered hate speech? I think that people should be able to think however they want. And if someone just happens to have a racist way of thinking, guess what? Let them insert foot in the mouth, and you just don't go buy stuff at that place. You don't buy their new album. You don't go do this and that. Let them say whatever they're going to say so they can expose themselves as either being frauds, shitty people, or great human beings. So I think the more we allow people to say what they want to say, the more and more we can just, cut through the BS, man.
Exactly. I agree with you. I completely agree. I mean, a lot of us, that's how we picture ourselves, especially as as our veteran free thinkers. Like that's what we are.
And I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. Yeah. I'm not a Democrat. I'm just Joe Biggs, a red-blooded American who likes fucking bald eagles, shooting guns, and drinking beer. That's about it.
Who doesn't like those things? Which, I mean, that's kind of the things I really want to get into with Marcus here in a minute, to talk about Calexit and kind of like what they envision. Because my biggest thing with any type of revolutionary idea or front, or wherever you want to call it, or even breaking away, is it's not the act of doing it itself, it's what comes after I'm more concerned about. And so that's my biggest questions for any of these kind of revolutionary groups is like, okay, fine, say you get what you want. What happens after that? Because like you see this in all those countries, when any type of revolution happens, shit falls apart pretty quickly because nobody planned for what happened afterward. And that's what my big concern.
So my question is, though, so the yes, California, I don't know much about you guys yet, but are you saying that you want California to break away and be its own country, have your own president, your own elections, and things like that? Okay.
Yes,
I'm down.
Okay. So okay, let's give Marcus the floor and kind of give us a breakdown and synopsis of what Yes California is and what they're trying to accomplish.
Simply put, we want California to secede from America, radical as that sounds, and form its own nation. We think that financially it would be awesome for Californians. Politically, it would be better for Californians. It would make them feel safer, and we'd be able to do more of the things we want. And we also believe that culture-wise, it would help. We feel that we are held back by the federal government, which is typically responsive to American culture, and that no one's fault, not good, not wrong, but American culture and California culture are very different, to the point that it's causing substantial policy disagreements, to the point of, I mean, I was on Fox News, and I admitted that I agreed with Jeff Sessions on this one thing. What's going on between America right now and California is unsustainable. You cannot have a government operate this way with constant lawsuits and constant battling and constant, I'm not going to do this. Oh, you did that? Well, check out what I'm doing. Not going to work, not sustainable. We're already there, need a giant change. We think that politically that would make California work better. And financially, there is absolutely no debate that California would win big if it was independent, like in the hundreds to 200s of billions of dollars in surplus revenue.
So I have a question. So for the counties that don't want to break apart from California and want to stay part of the United States, i.e. Butte County, Humboldt County, and a few other counties that originally wanted to be part of the state of Jefferson, would you allow them to form their own and not be part of the Calexit and form their own state and stay part of the Union?
We've said so, yeah. And we've actually been talking with the Jefferson people. We don't feel that there's a difference between interior California and coastal California, or Northern California and Southern California. But we do feel, and a lot of data backs up, there is a huge difference between California north of Chico and California south of Chico. I think that's where the real dividing line is. And so,
well, I mean, if you go to south of Chico, and you go to an area such as Oroville or Marysville that are predominantly conservative, and you stay in those areas, because you have places like Travis Air Force Base that want to stay part of the Union because of the fact that, I mean, they're military towns. They're super pro-America.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a big question.
I would say anything south of Sacramento, predominantly more than that.
Chico is liberal.
You go to Chico, yeah, but if you look at the rest of Butte County,
County are also.
I know that for a fact because I'm a former resident of Butte County, of Oroville specifically. Which is predominantly conservative, and then you go to Marysville, Yuba City, which is predominantly conservative. You go to the rest of the area. I mean, the only part of Butte County that's liberal is Chico itself. Or if you go out towards, that specifically, you go to Paradise, they're super conservative.
Sure.
So looking specifically into Butte County, if we want to break down Butte County in itself, the only part would be Chico. But other than that, the rest of the county is really conservative.
I think we agree. Yeah, I think we're agreeing that the real dividing line in culture in California is not east, west, north, south. It's California and Jefferson. And
so that brings me two questions that's really interesting. I wanted to bring up quickly before we do that is do you support the 3-state solution that has been proposed? And my biggest question, especially as veterans, what's going to concern me is how are you going to handle federal military bases, because there's multiple bases in California. They have billions of dollars invested into California in terms of military equipment. How is that going to get handled? Are you going to buy it from the United States? Are you just going to give it back? Like, how is that going to get handled once this goes through? Like, that's a big question that's going to come up.
Oh, absolutely. Those are all good questions. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
We get soundbite debates today. So even if I go on a show where I know most people aren't going to agree with me, I did one last night, I really respect people who allow you to have the time to actually explain yourself, actually go into details. We don't have to agree, but I think we're all saying the same thing, that we should have intelligent discussions. And thank you for letting me on. So all good questions. Number one, Calexit movement is against splitting up California. Californians are majority against splitting up California. Let me look into my crystal ball, as I've done on a couple other shows. It's going to fail so hard. And the idea to split California up, that guy's going to get spanked and publicly embarrassed so hard. I disagree with a lot of the people in the Calexit movement. They are upset it's coming up for a vote. I think it's Providence. It's going to shut down this discussion that, oh, you want to secede? Well, California is going to split apart. When this thing goes up for a vote and fails, that threat will die. So I look forward to the failure of this vote, and I look forward to the death of that threat.
As a native California, born and raised, lived my whole life in Long Beach, California, I will say there's a huge difference between the North and South. Huge difference. Culturally, there's a huge difference. I grew my whole life in California. So for you to say, all Californians are the same, we're all culturally the same, that's not true. Another point is No, we're not culturally the same. There's no way. Northerners and Southerners talk differently. We talk differently. We have different lingo. I mean, just the way we go about life is totally different. Another thing is, what would you do with all the federal tax dollars? So I read something earlier that Calexit is asking for the federal government to give all the tax dollars back to, if they exit, they want all their money back. And I understand that this movement is mainly based off Donald Trump. I mean, it's happened at least 100 times before. They want to
200 times.
200 times before. But I think right now in today's era, in today's political spectrum of things, it's based off Donald Trump. So what happens when Donald Trump doesn't get reelected? Calexit happens in 2019. Donald Trump doesn't get reelected. They get a liberal in there. Are you guys going to be asking to come back?
No. So a couple things, I'll take them in the order that they came. Number one, Southern California and Northern California are different. Absolutely. And they're different from each other, and neither one of them is like the coast in between them, or the Central Valley, or the alternative on the eastern side of the Sierras, or the Jefferson region, or the Inland Empire region. So California actually, according to every sociologist, has 7 to 12 regional cultures, not just 2. What I like to point out is studies by NPR and Fox News. A lot of Californians have left California and moved to other American states.
Yeah.
And I love it because what it shows is that to Californians, they may think that they're different from each other. They are vastly different from the rest of America. So conservative Californians left, moved to Colorado, and within 1 year, Colorado legalized LGBTQ marriage and marijuana, and then the rest of Colorado said, you're liberals. Well, they said, no, I'm a conservative. I hate liberals. That's why I left California. Yeah, you're a liberal by American standards. So, like we like to say,
I don't disagree with that statement on some of that.
Well, there's a lot of documentation to prove it, and I can provide that documentation. We have a lot of Californians that have moved to Oregon and Washington, Colorado, and Texas.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reporting on how they've been received.
Yeah.
Additionally, like we like to say, you want to argue over if you wear Birkenstocks or flip-flops. When you go to Kentucky, they say, why aren't you wearing shoes? So these regional differences only really matter to Californians, and they are infinitesimal compared to the rest of America's culture.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Moving on to the military question and the money question, those are kind of one and the same. California is a donor state. So we put more into the federal system than we ever get. That's gone on for 30 years, 3 decades, 30 years, about since the late 80s, early 90s. So we're going to lose nothing. 2016, we lost $103 billion in federal income taxes we got nothing for. 2015, it was $32 billion. And over the last 15 years alone, California has lost collectively $400 billion being part of America. There will be no loss of funds if we leave. We've thoroughly looked at that. Now, it's not about money, but nobody takes you seriously if you're going to go, let's secede and become poor. Nobody's going to follow you at all. You have to at least show that you can make it. So financially, we'll be solvent. Financially, we'll be wealthier. Like I've routinely said when I've gone on Fox News, we can cut taxes in half. If we secede, we can.
I think you guys should, and you guys should bring in Bernie Sanders, and everyone will have the same pay. I think that'd be great.
Well, Bernie Sanders was very popular here in California, and I love the fact that when he campaigned in California, he had only California flags.
Yeah, I was there for all that. I followed him around all of them.
Yeah, you saw the protest in San Diego. It was all California flags. Everyone in California loved it.
So that
we are.
That's kind of like one of the things that I'm concerned about too with California is that you have a serious housing crisis right now in California, especially in Silicon Valley. You have basically working class poor that are living out of their cars and with jobs that are making $80,000 a year. How is California going to tackle that if it isn't doing it already in the state as it is? Like, how is it going to be any different with its own country?
Well, for one, it's money. I understand people go, it's not money. It is money. So if you look at all of the proposals about dealing with homelessness, they need homes. You're going to have to build that. or you're going to have to do secured rent levels, which you have to subsidize the business owners if you're going to do that. So it's going to take cash. Where's that money going to come from? Raise taxes? Nobody wants to do that. So if we have a Calexit, we can pay for the homeless and not raise taxes. Additionally, I'd like to point out, why are there homeless in California? This is one of my favorite topics.
I was specifically talking about the working class homeless, like the people that are making $80,000 a year living out of their cars because they can't afford a 1-bedroom or a studio apartment in Silicon Valley. That's who I'm specifically talking about. Not like homeless themselves, but the working class homeless.
Yeah, so my understanding is that we are losing a lot of the lower end middle class. So people who are cooks, truck drivers, janitors. We're not actually losing middle class and upper middle class. So we are losing people at the lower end of the spectrum. And it's primarily because they can't find that single family home or an apartment to their liking. Part of that, I feel, has to do with density. I always ask people, where's that single family large lot apartment in downtown London or New York or Tokyo or Singapore or Hong Kong? It's simply not there. You have to accept smaller living spaces in places with higher density, which is because of California regulation. That's true. But Californians don't want sprawl, which means you have to do what's called infill development, or building in the urban core, which means higher density housing, not as big a lots. And a lot of people don't want that. They want something bigger. They want the American dream, right? The white picket fence, large lot house, or at least a sizable apartment. They don't want an apartment that's a small closet like the average New Yorker lives in. Unfortunately, that's what the economy is allowing them to have. I'm not saying there's not a problem. I just want to put it into context. The economy is doing so well that we have this housing issue. Those two things are related.
So I know California wants to be this utopia for everyone to live in, rainbows and unicorns and stuff. So what do you talk about the southern border when it comes to the immigration issue, which a lot of those immigrants coming over here are federally funded. They get federal government funding for them to come to this country. How is California going to sustain the amount of immigrants that they want, that they're pushing, with the amount of homeless and people that don't have anything already in California? I mean, my uncle is the lead officer on Skid Row. And if you've probably been to Skid Row, it's like Beirut. So how are you going to sustain those people and help them while allowing other people to come into this country that aren't American citizens, and you're giving more funding to them? You guys are going to go broke. I mean, there's no way you can sustain that. Like,
yeah, but
literally.
it's all about love.
Actually, we won't go broke even if we did give all the benefits you're talking about to the undocumented. Typically,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so
the
and to go back,
state and local total for undocumented support in California is somewhere around $25 billion. The budget of California is $170 billion. It's nowhere near the amount of money it would take to go broke to fund all these people and give them everything they want. Just want to put that in context.
Yeah, one thing I say about California. California's GDP is a little better than Texas GDP, but you think about you think about all the federal the federal
this is the
programs,
GDP right now,
right?
For California.
Think about all the federal programs, all the veterans out there getting federal dollars, federal, Social Security, all this other stuff. If you become a separate country, guess what? That is null and void. You are no longer an American citizen. You don't get that stuff anymore. So what are you going to do about Social Security, veteran benefits, disability, all these federal funded programs that come from the from America? Are they just supposed to give it to California since they wanted to leave the union?
I say part of it, if they break away and secede, part of the contract has to say that no matter how bad it fails, they're never allowed to come back to America, that they have to just live the rest of their lives as a failure.
Agreed. I just want to make sure you guys can still see me. I lost the video feed, but you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah, I can still see you.
I totally agree. Let's make that contract where we can never come back.
Yes.
Totally fine with everybody in the Calexit movement. Totally fine, I believe, with these at least 47.5% of Californians, which Reuters Ipsos in 2017 said were open to the topic of discussion, or about half. We're not going to lose any money. As I explained, California puts more into the federal system than it gets. So the moment that we leave, we're $100 billion extra in cash. We could literally fund every program that we lost on our own. Additionally, That's after we paid our federal income taxes and received services. So military benefits, retirement, Social Security, that's included in the federal income taxes we already pay and receive services back. All of that could be funded by ourselves without any American assistance, and there'd be no issue. However, I think one of the key issues here that's important is that federal law says that America does not have the choice on if it's going to pay military veterans or health care or retirement or Social Security. By federal law, checks have to be mailed to wherever you are on the surface of the earth. So there's no law that says, oh, if you live in China and you're a retiree, you don't get your Social Security. That's not the way the federal law works. So they have to change the federal law in order to do what you're suggesting.
Okay, so here's the big difference. So those people living in China and overseas are still American citizens.
Yeah.
Now,
that comes to the question of how you're going to handle it.
Says we no longer want to be a part of America, and every single citizen here is no longer American. It's null and void. You're not a citizen. Federal funds do not go to you at that point. So what are you going to do?
If you denounce your citizenship, yes, that's going to be a question of how you're going to handle it. In the military,
we would say cut, sling, load.
Yeah, you're denouncing your citizenship at that point. California becomes its own country. We are no longer obligated to federally pay anyone that.
Let me tackle that real quick. Is the basic question I'm getting from this for you, Mark, is how is Calexit gonna handle citizenship? You know, are you gonna break off completely away? There's no dual citizenship. There's just California. That's it. Like that's all you're getting is that citizenship. Because that's gonna come up to a lot of things. Is like, how are you gonna handle benefits to them? And if they can't retain their U.S. citizenship, they're gonna want to leave so they can. If that's the case, like that's gonna be a big contention and a big issue later down the road.
Now, I have another question to add on to this. So, what are you gonna do with the Native American tribes that are in California? Talking about the Maidu, the Yurok, the Butte, the Coahuila, the Balut, all of them. Are you going to give them any special benefits that the United States government hasn't given them, or are you going to take away more from them than they already have?
Those are great questions. So number one, we have always said that everybody's going to get dual citizenship. We're not taking away anybody's citizenship or any of their rights. We simply want the ability for California to choose policies for itself. So when California secedes from America, everybody would be both a California citizen and they would retain citizenship with America if they already had it. If you're undocumented, you wouldn't get it. The difference would be that your children, if they're born in California, would not have American citizenship. Now, if the American government chooses to say, hey, 25% of you in California didn't vote for Calexit, the California people are saying you're still American citizens, but we as America want to turn our backs on you, well, that's up to the federal government and the voters of America if they choose to be that.
Californians will just come across the border and have the baby here, and then they'll still get their duals.
and if you look back to it on,
I've said that, I'm Latino, and I find it poetic that people who are Caucasian would have to cross the border in order to have an anchor baby. Most California people.
It's going to happen.
That's kind of funny to me. That's kind of funny to me. I'm not going to lie.
I think that's a beautiful poetry.
Well, I mean, that already happens with Canada already. I'm sure there's Canadian and Russian babies already. Like that happens. That's a thing. So
anyway, and that's just it. Yeah, exactly. Canada and Korea and England have joint citizenship. America has said that's not any problem at all. So America would have to specifically single out California. As far as the Native American issue, we have been working on a policy statement and we want to release it. I've hinted at this in other interviews. We would like all Native tribes to be recognized, which the federal government has never done. We'd like all Native tribes to be given land, which the federal government has never done, even if it recognizes them. It doesn't
homestead land.
And we'd like them to actually own their land, which the federal government has never done. Additionally, we'd like it where if you break ground on a new development, you have to allow the local tribe the first 15 minutes of that ceremony to talk about whatever they want. We think this will empower Natives in 3 different dimensions the federal government has never done, and culturally respect Native people. And thank you for asking.
So I'm gonna backtrack real fast on that. You said that you're gonna give them U.S. citizenship to their parents, but anyone born after that who has U.S. and American citizenship, if you look at how federal law is set up already, if you're an American and you have a child in another country, your child is automatically granted U.S. citizenship.
Great. Then there's nothing to worry about.
So, and then backtracking to what you just said after that, Native Americans not having their own land on reservations where I've lived, multiple places, including New Mexico, California, and Hawaii's homestead land. In Hawaii, what we do is we actually, anytime land is broken, Native Hawaiians, we do come in and we do talk about it. But so with that being said, would that set way for Native Hawaiians to actually reclaim Hawaii as a proper kingdom that we originally had after the United States government illegally overthrew it?
Well, the Calexit movement has said when we looked at it that we thought that one of the ways Calexit could succeed is following the Hawaiian model. You have two presidents of America, Clinton and Obama, who both said, two American presidents, and I'll remind you that American presidents can unilaterally recognize any nation and make it an official nation. They have that power under federal law. Both of them have said that the way that Hawaii was forced into America was wrong.
Oh, yeah. And if you look at the Apology Act of 93 that Clinton signed, as soon as he got into office, he stated that, yes, the Hawaiian kingdom was illegally overthrown. Obama, on the other hand, could have done something, especially claiming that he's from Hawaii, even though he went to Punahou, not poor like he stated, because Punahou is one of the highest paid private schools, and his grandmother was the vice president of the Bank of Hawaii. He could have done something about it, but he failed to do something.
I agree.
But he talked about it.
He talked about it.
I mean, as long as he talked about it, we're good.
No one cares what Barry talked about because people in Hawaii don't even care about Barry.
Politics is like Walmart cards.
I mean, that's what we don't want to be part of that system anymore, where somebody comes up, gives a fancy speech, and nothing changes.
So this brings up an interesting question when to talk about secession and state, nations. So Texas is legitimately the only state in the union that was its own country before. If you succeed and Texas follows suit, would you recognize Texas as its own country as well? Like, would you work with Texas in that regard of maybe trade or something else like that? Would that be something that you could see in the future?
Yeah, we could trade out the liberal Californians that came to Texas.
Kick them all out.
They go back to California, and then we can take the conservative Californians that want to hunt and like do.
We're just doing a
shit
draft.
just,
that's all we're doing. Is
exactly. Let's just switch.
Deal. As long as we get Austin, you can keep
negative. You're not taking Austin.
We're based out of Austin. We're taking Austin back here.
Yeah, we're gonna keep Austin.
Not happening.
Yeah,
not happening.
Don't really want
you can take the people from Austin.
Yeah, you can take all the people. You can have them back. Y'all can take Portland. You can take all that shit. We'll give you all of the Starbucks.
Yeah.
So let's go back to
Black Rifle than Starbucks.
Let's go back to what Coy said about trade. So when it comes to trade, there's a lot of regulations, as we know. So what if you seceded and America was like, they put the harshest regulations on anything you want to trade within a union? Or
tariffs or anything else like that.
Or, I mean, how would you counter that? Because
California does have a lot of ocean front, so they can do a lot of port trading. That just my input said.
But
you have one of the largest ports. You have Long Beach Port, which is actually I think the second largest port.
Yeah, but also you have certain territories within that Pacific coast, that Pacific Ocean, that is owned by America. So you would have to get permission from them to even do any trading. They'd be like, where are you taking this? Where are you taking these goods? California. Nope. You got to go the other way. You can't come.
Or what about how are you going to handle mineral and oil deposits? How are you going to mine your own basically? Is like, how are you going to ship that? How are you going to trade that? Like,
laws on that.
I mean, so who owns the ocean? Who owns the coast? I mean, you guys would own California, but once you start going into the waters, who has ownership of that?
Yeah. And how are you going to enforce that? That's another big question.
Good question. I just want to point out California was a separate nation for a few weeks before it was forced to join America. That's why there's a star on the California flag. It was a homage to Texas. And when California joined America, they wanted to say, hey, we were an independent nation, also like Texas on day one. Additionally, that's why California is allowed to have its own separate army, the California Military Reserve. I don't mean the reserves. And that was also part of the negotiation where America recognized that California was an independent nation for a while. But to get at the larger issue of trade, once California leaves, it owns the ocean. So at least not the part around naval bases, certainly, but the rest of it would. So it can trade independently. I'm also, as I understand it, the ports in California are their own mechanism. They're neither federal or California owned. They're a separate private entity. And so it'd be up to them. I certainly think that they would want to trade. Otherwise, they'd go out of business. So they have to trade.
As far as I'm
federal
tracking, it would be the opposite because of the fact that Matson has to still follow maritime law by DHS. And Matson owns the Port of Long Beach.
I think it's going to depend, like when it comes to ownership of water rights. That's going to be a big thing. That's going to be a point of contention with the U.S. and California. Is that California is going to claim that the coastal waters belong to California, and the U.S. are going to say that it still belongs to us, and that's going to be a fight, and that's something you're going to have to look forward to as you secede.
Sure.
That's just my input into that.
Yeah,
I mean, California
They're
was
gonna pull the Coast Guard. They're going to pull all that stuff, and then California is going to have to start fucking making their own ships and buying shit and doing all that crap. That's going to cost a lot of goddamn money.
And then California is pretty much fucked.
Yeah.
California is pretty much
on the order of
fucked.
$100 billion.
I mean, California's not really, thinking about this financially. Federal government funds a lot of things on that coast. And then the minute you pull the federal government out of it, being America, California's going to have to fit, they're going to have to fill that gap. They're going to have to fill that void. And they think like this utopian mindset, like we're going to have all this money for all these people, but we also got to take care of our defense. We have to take care of our
infrastructure. Is
That's
going to
take years, and that's
going to take years and years, like Joe said.
And then at the same, you look at California as this area that's not America, so you're going to have people coming into California to attack, to hurt us, to get here. Like it's going to take you so long to even build up something, and they get people to I just don't see that could be. But hey, go for it.
I mean, what would happen if I know Californians are against the wall, but what would happen if the current president said, okay, they seceded, we're going to build a wall around California? I mean, what would you guys think
escape from New York kind of thing?
Like they just kind of and all the other states agreed, north and nothing south. Mexico is going to be open, but all the states east of California and north of California said, yes, we agree. And we're going to build a wall around California. And they're not going to be able to do anything since, they want to be traitors and, leave the union. I mean, how would you guys react to things like that?
Yeah.
So a couple points of clarification. One, the federal government does own the military bases, and there's a few other installations like the nuclear reactor on the coast. The rest of it is what they call a reserve, where they just claimed it. There is an actual property there. They haven't invested in it, and Californians have. So I think it would legally, if we're looking at precedents in the law, probably go to Californians. But I agree, it would be a battle. Certainly, Californians have to trade. We're dependent on trade, whereas America isn't. About 10% of the American economy is dependent on international trade, whereas in California it's 40%. We could survive with a wall being built on the Oregon, Arizona, and Nevada border. As long as we have access to Mexico and the ocean, we'll be able to trade and supply most of our economy. Most of our trade comes through the ocean anyways. It's not overland route from America on rail or trucks. Most of the goods.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna bring up a question with that is, are you planning on leasing military installations like most countries do? They do a lease with the United States government. And how long do you think it's going to take for California to get stable enough where they could, I guess, not have any points of conflict? Do you foresee it in the future? Anyway, that's my questions for you.
Yeah, so we have, and this is related to the trade issue. So we have always said this is going to be a partnership, and that we viewed a loving partnership with America once we're independent, the way that Canada and England deal with America. Military alliances, partnership, trade, people moving back and forth. It's not like we want to stop trading and stop interacting. We just want the ability to control our money and the policies that people want here. We're not going to stop trading. If anybody stops trading, it'll be on the American side. It won't come from us. But I also want to point out that
but you got to think that that's going to happen. I mean, look at what's happening to Londanistan. Look what's happening to Germany under Merkel. This open border, multicultural bullshit is leading to just complete and total chaos in the streets, stabbings all the time. All this crazy shit's happening.
Anti-Semitism's running rampant
there too. I highly doubt that America's going to go, let's just leave all this open and this will be good. No, because what's going to happen in California is what's happening in Europe right now, which is the fall of Western civilization right before our eyes. It's happening right now, every day. Just complete and total, just BS, chaos. The only way for this to work is America's got to say, all right, guys, see ya, and cut it off.
And here's
we're
the thing.
fine with that, Jim. We think America will do that. I mean, that's what we're
And a lot of people will say what
I
Joe
think
just
we should
said.
just cut to it, and let's just say that's part of it. You guys leave,
Well,
nothing.
America's going to do that. I mean, that's what we're betting on. Rasmussen did a poll last year, and it showed 41% of Republicans said, leave now, doesn't bother me. 32% of America said, go ahead and go. That was before the sanctuary cities debacle. So as wrapped up as people are about sanctuary cities, last year they were calm, and a third of America said, go ahead and go, and don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Yeah. We only need to be a little bit more Californian to aggravate the average Midwesterner to the point that we have 51% of Americans saying what you're saying. I'm sick and tired.
This is gonna be interesting because the Democratic Party is not gonna let you go because you're 54 electoral votes.
Yeah.
If California leaves, they're done. The Democratic Party is dead in the United States
every 4 years.
No, and that's true because I watched a video of you saying the exact same thing. You said in an interview, you said if California would have left, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have had 3 million votes. She won a popular vote because
she wouldn't have won the popular vote at all.
And that's exactly. I mean, I watched a video of you, and that's exactly what you said. So how do you? I mean, you guys hate Donald Trump, and you wanted Hillary to win, but you're leaving California, so you're pretty much telling the Democratic Party, "Hey, we really don't care about
shove
you."
off.
It's like
shove off there, Democrats.
It's like when a couple go out, they drink, and they get into an argument. I fucking hate you. I hate you. We're getting a divorce, and they go get divorced or whatever. And they wake up the next morning like, what the fuck did we just do? No, I'm so sorry. Take me back. Take me back. I love you. I'll do anything. I swear to God, I'll make you a sandwich every day, baby.
A couple things. One, Calexit movement got started in 2014 when Obama was president. Two, we've never said this is about Trump. That brought people to Calexit, but the moment they got here, we said, this is not the I hate Trump movement, or I want him to get out. That's the resistance.
I thought that's what you said during the anti-Trump rally a couple months ago. Isn't that the exact words that you used during your interview? That a lot of you guys were anti-Trump, and that's one of the other main reasons why you were pushing for another exit?
So as I'm saying, what I said throughout and what the movement has always said is that Trump activated people. Trump is not what is keeping people in the movement. So
he's the catalyst. I got it.
Yes, he is not the reason. So when people join and they go, I hate Trump, we don't go, yeah, this is the place for you. If you love Hillary and hate Trump, that's what this movement is about. We have never said that.
So are you guys admitting that you're anti-American?
I'm sorry?
So are you guys admitting that you're anti-American?
You would need to define that phrase. That's a loaded question.
No, it's a broad stated question. Are you anti-American? Wanting to leave America, are you anti-American?
Well, given that the question's not better defined, I'm going to say no.
So once you create your government, how would your government function? I mean, what would it be, a right, a left? Would you force everyone to come to the center? Would it be?
How is your government structure going to work?
How would the structure happen? Because you're still going to have conservatives there that don't. Because I'm pretty sure the majority of the Calexit movement is going to be.
Well, they won't have access to internet or be able to speak.
Yeah, because the internet, the internet.
That's actually a really good question. Is like, how about all these tech companies in Silicon Valley? Are they going to stay or are they going to leave? Have you talked to them? Do you know if they have any plans on staying there?
Because I know the silicon companies are behind the 3-state Cal breakup.
Yeah. So I want to clear up a couple things. One, yes, Trump would have won the popular vote if California wasn't part of America. But two, California has not affected a presidential election since the 1800s, and that includes recently. The loss of the electoral votes would have zero impact on the president. I just want to clear that up. Additionally, we wrote an essay looking at Congress, and the title of that is, Does California Affect the Balance of Power in the House of Representatives? Where we also showed that it is a myth that the American Congress would turn permanently Republican or Democrat without California. We simply don't have those kinds of numbers. A lot of people say we do, but we're the only group that actually looked at the numbers.
What is the current numbers of congressmen and women that you have currently in California right now?
As I understand, in the House of Representatives, we have 53 members, 39 of which are Democrats, and about 12 to 13 are Republicans, and then 2 senators, both of which are Democrats. As I understand it, I could be off on those particular numbers, but I would ask people to point out where the amount of seats in the House in California swung who controlled that House one way or the other. We can't find an instance where that happened in American history until the 1950s. So I think this is a myth, and I encourage people to look better into the actual numbers.
Okay. I have another question. What would your dollar be backed by? And would you be using the U.S. dollar? Would you still be using American currency, or would you be forming your own?
One second.
Calcoin.
Bitcoin. That's what they were going into that.
Chicken nuggets.
Bitcoin.
A lot of these questions are answered by the voters. We're just trying to get people to say and recognize the facts about Calexit and that Californians win if we leave. A lot of the finite details would have to be worked out by the voters. Calexit hasn't taken a lot of policy stances simply because if you say you like the color green, somebody's going to say, I hate you for liking that. So we try to limit the amount of exposure we have. We're not trying to be Kanye West. Okay.
Gotcha.
Do you foresee, because like you said, there's more conservatives in California than I ever thought. And I've never really gone there until the last couple of years. And I've been traveling up and down California with this whole election and following Bernie and Hillary and Trump. And I've gone to Jefferson, and I've been down to San Diego and LA and Huntington Beach and Long Beach and all these other freaking places and shit. Inland Empire, all over. And there's way more conservatives there than I thought. Do you even think that these people are going to be forced into doing something like this to live under a leadership that they hate more? I wouldn't say hate, but just do not agree with it all and do not despise. There you go, despise. Do you not foresee a civil war between California? Do you not see there being a fight amongst them saying, you know what? Oh, you guys are going to go break off and you're going to force me to live under something that I can't stand? Negative.
Which is going to come up to how you handle your constitution. If you're going to be a constitutional democracy, like how are you handling electoral systems?
I don't see a lot of people rolling over.
Because are you going to, because a lot of that Second Amendment conversation has been coming up recently. Are you going to have a Second Amendment, or are you going to get rid of that entirely? How are you handling the First Amendment?
Oh, they'll get rid of that. And
how are you monitoring those types of rights debates when California leaves?
So let me take the first one. We have always said people have the right to vote in a democracy, and they have the right to discuss issues that affect their lives. So we expect some counties are going to go with California, and some counties are going to say, no, I want to stay with America. So that will handle a lot of the issues. The conservative parts, especially up in Jefferson, probably won't vote to go with California, and they have a right in each county to choose where they want to go. We think the majority of California, and certainly the Central Valley, the Inland Empire, Orange County, San Diego, all of Southern California, the border, Sacramento and the Bay Area and the entire coast will choose to go with California. And frankly, if we get just that, we're going to be sitting just fine. We'll have some impact, but we'll be okay.
I want to go back to another point. So, America is a republic. We're not a democracy, for one. So if California is going to claim themselves to be a democracy, and the majority of people, one day another vote came up, the majority voted and said, yes, we want to go back to America. Would you honor that? Being a democracy?
Of course.
Okay, that's good. I like that.
Of course. You have the right to vote. If you want to vote against Calexit, you have that right. Calexit has to respect that. If you want to leave, you have that right. If you have a county and you want to stay with America, you have that right. Jefferson, if you want to vote and leave and become your own state, you have that right. It's hypocritical, and I'm not going to do it, to say, well, we get a vote, but you don't. Everybody gets the vote. Now, we can campaign against those votes and try to encourage people to switch the way they vote, but there's not going to be a civil war because while there are millions of conservatives in California, they are a minority. They're
the other reason why there wouldn't be a civil war in California is because you don't allow them to have guns. California gun laws are the strictest gun laws in the country.
Yeah, but here's my thing, though. Just like we have U.S.-backed rebels, we have this and that, America is going to say, you know what? We like these guys. We're going to help them out. Gotcha.
Yeah. which could be a danger.
And one thing you said that there wouldn't be a
reason.
civil war, but there was almost a civil war in Berkeley. You know, you had the anarchists out there, and it's going to be factions like that.
It's going to happen
on both sides.
That you're going to have to deal with. Yeah,
there's going to be factions.
So let me throw out a couple facts. One is that counties would be able to choose. So if the conservative counties chose to leave with America, they don't need to rebel against anything. So now we've dropped the amount of rebels dramatically. Secondly, I mean, this is democracy. It's respecting the will of the people. And I want to point out a fact.
So you're saying there? One second though. So you're saying there would be little bubbles that would be surrounded by liberals. They would say this one little bubble. They can have their guns and they can be like pro-American. They can do all that. But then as soon as they drive outside those lines, they're fucked. And they're like basically in an island of just freedom.
Oh no, you're gonna have like Eastern Germany. Like that's what it's gonna look like if
Israel.
you do it that way.
You know, you're gonna be surrounded by your
Palestine and Gaza. So
Gaza strips everywhere.
I would hope it doesn't go that way. I would think that people who are looking at this and thinking, where do I want to live? And do I want to live in a bubble? Or am I actually connected to the border of Nevada? It makes sense for me to leave. Or like Jefferson's thinking, hey, we're connected to Oregon and Nevada. We could break off and have borders.
Or would California buy them out? Like, would you just go in those territories? It's like, hey, we'll give you money to leave, you know, and just like, we're taking this.
That would happen.
And here's one thing I want to say, Marcus. I mean, I don't want you to think in any way, shape, or form we're attacking you, because we're not.
Yeah.
What we're doing, we're asking hard questions, and these questions are coming from people that we know. They're like, ask them this. So we just want you to understand it. We don't want you to feel attacked or anything. But these are real questions.
So I appreciate the dialogue. Ask every question. We've always said, ask anything. We'll take any question anytime. But I do want to point out one little fact. You know, there was these people called the Americans, and in 1776, 40% of them, only 40% said, you know what, we want to break away from England and form our own country. And everybody else had to deal with it. So if that's wrong, then I guess the formation of America is wrong.
No, I agree with that. That was my statement.
That's a true statement.
What my statement is what happens when California decides we're going to go this way, and that 3% of Californians says, I don't think so. I'm all about that red, white, and blue, baby. I like bald eagles and fried chicken. I don't think so. And they're going to sit there and pick up arms, and then they're going to fight. And then who do you think America's going to back? The people who are completely going full lefty, communist agenda, open borders, jihadi. No, they're going to go, you know what, we're going to help these guys out, these pro-American rebels stuck in the California stronghold, and we're going to help them. We're going to fund them. We're going to allow the military to back them, air support, helicopters, Coast Guard, food rations, ammo. We got it.
So here's why that's not going to happen.
But we don't know that. I'm sure in England they thought the same thing.
Okay, fair enough. Let me explain a couple things. So the way that money works today is that people's economies are integrated with each other. And countries that have money invested in each other don't attack that other country. So if you look at every country that's been invaded after World War II, Iraq, Sudan, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, they were either under embargo or cut off, or Ukraine, or cut off from the global economy, meaning it was okay to blow them up and destabilize them, or even threaten them. If America, we're going to get America's permission to go. So let's just establish that. Congress is going to say, we voted and you have the right. So what you're saying is that the American government both approves of something and then disapproves of the very decision it made. I don't think that's going to happen, because what you would have then is civil war in America.
Oh, we're on the brink of that already.
Yeah. Now they're fighting against it. That's why we're doing it legally. So Americans would have to go against Americans to do what you're saying.
I mean, we have a government right now that's fighting. Look at the so-called deep state. Look at the people within the our federal system,
or the resistance,
that simply have bias or are part of this resistance movement already, and they're government officials, they're elected officials going against the thing. So I mean, all this stuff can happen. It's not far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm saying it's easier than simply going, "Hey guys, we're going to be our own country. See you later.
We're leaving. Bye."
That's a lot that's happening here. This is the breakup of America. This is like a dirty divorce.
So I mean, and Marcus, how long do you think this would take? So
Yeah.
for how long would it take from the moment it was approved to the moment California was self-sufficient? How many years do you think that would take?
Yeah.
Right. So I just real quickly want to point out why there's not going to be a civil war. Yes, you're right. Nobody knows the future, but there's a lot of factual reasons about the way money works. The fact is that America, if it chose to not trade with California, if it said, we're going to threaten war with you, what they're also saying is we want to destabilize the American economy. A war on your border is bad for business. It scares investors, and that would cause an automatic recession in America. Additionally, you can't afford to not trade with a trading partner unless you want to go into a recession. So if Americans wanted to have a civil war amongst themselves, and if they wanted to collapse and go into a global recession on their own, then those are the decisions they would have to make before they ever did anything that's being suggested here. But to get to the other topic about time, typically the only studies on secession, and there isn't many, have said it's about 5 years from when people are serious to when it happens. The reason for that is that if you're doing it peacefully, politicians want the credit. You know, they want to be known as the person who made that transition happen. Usually they're termed out within 4 years. So because of that, in democracies that have peacefully seceded over the last 70 years, typically it's a 5-year transition. Now, that doesn't mean California going to do that, but
yeah, I got a bigger question with that is like how many people from the Calexit movement are planning on taking government positions once California breaks off? Like that's kind of like the normal go-to when it comes to any type of secession or breakaway or revolution is like the people that are starting it are taking positions once it happened. Is that happening or are you guys going to step away?
I've never heard of anybody in the movement saying, I want to run for this office or I expect to be this officer if it happens. Now, does that mean that somebody's going to do it? Certainly they could do it, but the movement's not full of people saying, I'm setting myself up to be the next whatever. Our opinion and what we've always said, and nobody has publicly disagreed inside the movement, is even though it's perhaps not the sexiest term, career politicians who have experience with Sacramento and some federal experience would be the ones to actually handle the negotiation and transition. The reason is the Calexit movement isn't doing this for ego. They actually want California to be a nation, which means you want to win. You want to win, you need experts. You need people who know government. So
well, who's going to be? You got to have a George Washington. Who's going to be the guy? There's got to be someone that's being propped up at this point in time because you can't vote on it and then go, all right, guys, let's get together, let's huddle. Who wants to do it?
Yeah.
Let's do paper.
Who's running? Who's going to run the convention?
Look at what politicians are saying now. You know, you have Kamala Harris saying, I don't support Calexit, but I get it. You have Kevin De Leon saying, maybe I don't support Calexit, but I view America as a foreign nation.
You have Maxine Waters mumbling.
Staging themselves for this.
Yeah.
And the Calexit movement would support people with experience moving in, not
now,
people.
My question,
and that's definitely
my
going to
next
become
question about that.
Yeah.
What would happen to the 250,000 federal employees that are employed in California? Would you guys give them jobs, or what's going to happen with them?
So if they're attached to the military, we want to have the military leased. So I don't think they'd lose their job. They'd probably be paid by the federal government.
Okay, let's minus the military, and it goes to 150,000 federal employees that work there. Being a former federal employee in California working for the United States Forest Service, that's gonna, like, you guys are gonna lose a lot. And Cal Fire can't even handle the fires without the Forest Service. So what's gonna happen?
Well, if we're allowed to take over the forest, we'd obviously have to have all those people hired by the California agency. As you know, for everything the federal government does, there's an equivalent California agency. I mean, a lot of people complain about that as excessive bureaucracy, and that's true. But what it also means is that it's providence, because while bureaucracy has been excessive in California, it's also made it where if we wanted to separate, we already have a lot of those agencies. We simply need to divert money into them. For example, California already has its own army, the California Military Reserve, not under the ability to be controlled by the federal government, and the California Naval Militia. Now, they are tiny, about 5,000 people, and maybe $1 or $2 million in the budget. However, the California Reserves and the Naval Reserves and whatever is funded by California. We would simply divert funding to these things, and we could grow them over time. We've never said this would happen in a day. It would take years to negotiate and everything out.
Now, if you look at the California Military Reserve, it's just like the Texas State Guard. You guys don't have weapons. So what are you going to use them to, are you going to train them with weapons? Are you going to turn them into an actual militia where you actually give them firepower to actually defend themselves in case you guys come to a war? What are you guys
the government will have guns.
I mean, what are you going to do with the National Guard once the National Guard loses federal funding and they lose all their weapons?
Well, most National Guards are funded by the state anyway. Like, I know, but they're going to lose little.
But there's also a lot of federal funding if you look at it.
Yeah.
We're not. Yes, you're right. We would lose federal funding, but we would gain money.
You gain money, but would you know what to do with that federal, like without having a federal budget to support your National Guard?
You're asking if California could competently grow an army on its own?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I feel it could, but I recognize that that's hypothesizing. I would point out that the California Military Reserve is staffed with people who were in the Army. It's not just dudes off the street. They already had professional military training before they joined, or they don't get to be part of it. So we're already starting off with the core of people who have had military experience by the best military in the world.
Are you positive about the fact that they have military experience? Because most of those guys look like me, and I mean, shit, I don't even look like I was in the military at one point, but I was.
As I understand, you have to have had official United States military training, or you're not allowed to join.
Copy.
Okay. Well, anyway, that we're actually at an hour. We need to wrap this up, guys. Like, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I still think there's more questions that could come up. Maybe have you on again to talk about more.
Thank you.
But kind of in closing remarks, what do you want to say to our audience and those that are watching from Calexit and stuff like that? Just let you have the floor for a couple minutes to go ahead and say what you want to say and plug what you need to.
Well, first I want to say thank you. And if anybody's watching this and you're conservative, have us on. We can talk. We're not going to bite. I understand what other liberals are doing. I get it. We don't do that. We want to have real discussions. Please consider having us on. But about the Calexit movement, you know, our plan is simply this: educate Californians that they are culturally different and that they lose, and that they lose money. You know, part of the reason that we think we can win is that people who, every single critic that I've met about Calexit has been misinformed. Our number one enemy is nothing but misinformation. I've been in about 1,000 debates. I have never met somebody who didn't get one of these three facts wrong. Number one, it's illegal to secede. That's not true. Texas versus White says if Congress approves, you can. That could be as low as 51% of Congress. Consent is the key word. It's never been defined. Number two, California is going to lose money. That is a lie. We will gain billions and billions of dollars. Number three, America will never let you go. Those people are not aware of the Rasmussen poll that showed a third of America already said take off. Before the sanctuary cities debate, I would question what that poll would look like now. So we think that misinformation is the only thing holding us back. And we think that somebody or someone or whatever is trying to do that because they know if people actually got the facts, it makes sense to a lot of Californians to do this. And that's all we're trying to do. I also want to point out that a lot of people are not aware that 47.5%, Reuters Ipsos, January 2017, 47.5% of Californians said they were not opposed to talking about Calexit. And three different polls showed 32%. So we have a solid third of Californians saying, let's go, and a solid third of Americans saying, go ahead and go. You ever watch Fox News? I was on Fox News and they said, do you think America's going to let you go? And I go, do you watch Fox News? Do you see the amount of garbage you talk on us every day? We don't have to have a bad relationship. We can have an amicable divorce. I'll leave it at that. Please check us out at yescalifornia.org.
Hey, Joe, our other guest, you got anything?
No, I'm pulling for him. I want it to happen completely. I mean, I am 120% for it, and almost everybody I know is. I wish the best of luck to you, and may God have mercy on your soul.
As a native Californian, hey,
as
a native Californian, hey, if you guys can do it, good for you.
Yeah.
But we'll see where it ends up.
I refuse to claim to be from California.
I am
only
a native
lived in
California.
So.
I've never been to California. I lived there for a little while when I was stationed there in 29 Palms, which you need to get rid of the desert or make it green or something. I don't know if that happens. But my point is, like, I wish you luck. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's just the way that democracy works, as a way that our planet works. I just want you to think about what happens next. And that's what I'm most concerned about, because I don't want to see California break away and then devolve into a third world state like Mexico or South America, anywhere else. Like, we don't want that to happen. We would want California to succeed because better trading partners and everything else like that. That's my concern. But anyway, Kai, go ahead and lead us out with the plugs for today.
If you like meat in your mouth and you want to rub it all the time, check out Grill Your Ass Off for all these awesome meat rubs. Use promo code The Hooch for 15% off. And if you like this sick-ass shirt that I'm wearing, or this awesome shirt that Michael Harris is wearing, check out AmericanSugarPullers.com. Again, use promo code The Hooch so you don't look like a douchebag.
Anyway, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Marcus, for coming out. It was great having you on. Great conversation. That's what we really like to do with having these conversations. We'll definitely try to get you out another time to talk more about this as the November comes around, because that's when it should be on the ballot in November, correct?
Yeah, and send us the link. We'll send it to our 44,000 followers.
Awesome. And one thing I want to thank you for is reaching out to this small-time garage band podcast, dude. I mean, you know, we're slowly getting up there. We haven't been around too long, but I'm glad you reached out to us. You know, it's awesome talking to you.
It's been great. Anyway, guys, we love you all. We will see you next time and next week. Thank Joe, thank Marcus for coming on, and as always, our hosts, we love you. And we will see you next time. We love you, America.
We're out,
guys.